Stopping new financing for new fossil fuel projects doesn't cause mass unemployment, doesn't cause companies to close down. It stops new bad practice from happening.
Hello, I'm Christine Dawson, Global ESG Reporter at ESG Clarity. I'm joined today by John Ditchfield, Director and Owner of research consultancy Impact Lens, Claude Fourcroy, ex-Product Manager in Trade Commodity Finance at Rabobank and supporter of Extinction Rebellion, and Chidi Oti Obihara, co-founder of COP26 Climate Action Plan and ex-head of structured swaps, Morgan Stanley London, and also a supporter of Extinction Rebellion. And we're here today talking about Extinction Rebellion's demand that all new fossil fuel financing should be ended immediately.
For me, the really pivotal issue isn't the exact timing, the month and the date that we end new fossil fuel financing, although I think that it can and should happen this year, actually. I think what's really important is the way in which that ending happens. That's one of the reasons why we funded the COP26 Climate Action Plan, because I think when you try to get coordinated action on fossil fuels done, the free rider problem keeps coming up, and people keep on saying, what do you do about this other counterparty, this other country, this other company that may not be doing the same thing that we're doing? So if you ask one country, company, region not to finance new fossil fuels, do you distort the market and cause everyone to go somewhere else to get their financing done? I think what's really important is international coordination. What's really important is everyone doing the same thing at the same time. What's really important is getting everyone to agree on a mutually agreeable date. If everyone at the same time stops all financing for all new fossil fuel projects, then it's effective.
My understanding would be that, well, firstly, there are very large parts of the world where fossil fuel usage is still thinking about the broad spectrum of history, in its infancy. And for those countries to be part of decarbonisation immediately could potentially stunt their economic development. I'd just be very interested in it. Sorry to answer a question with a question. I wonder what the difficulties are there, because obviously for the developed world, thinking of Europe, North America there, where the focus is now on reducing carbon emissions and divestment and this sort of approach, that can be integrated into our energy supply system. But what of the problem of, and it's widely identified, this idea of carbon lock-in, where you have energy systems that are relatively new, where electrification is still not widespread. So thinking of parts of India, for example, where fossil fuels present a relatively speaking, cheap and easy route to economic development and growth. I mean, I'm in no way saying that I support that. I just want to try and explore one of the challenges that exists for those who are arguing for rapid decarbonisation of the energy system.
Most of the extraction that is happening in the global south at the moment is for the benefit of the north. So, and the way it's done, it's completely damaging to them, to the environment, but also to them. And well, if you listen to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, they will say that in most of those places, renewables are now cheaper than fossil fuels, right? So, and if you look at some of these massive projects in Bangladesh, in India, in Vietnam, I mean, in terms of social rights, indigenous rights, moving people away from their from their livestock, from in terms of pollution, these projects are a complete disaster. So yes, they need energy, and yes, they need to develop. But I think we need to question, the way it's been done and the way the fossil fuel companies are intending to do it.
Stopping new financing for new fossil fuel projects doesn't cause mass unemployment, doesn't cause companies to close down. It stops new bad practice from happening. It stops us growing a polluting sector. It stops us carrying on with fossil fuels when we should be talking about transition.
I was looking at a report on, it's headed "Banking on Climate Chaos." So it's a recent report from a number of NGOs of this area. And it's well put together report. And I was trying to get a picture of the sort of scale of financing of fossil fuels. And basically, we're talking about 4 trillion in financing over the past 4 years. It should be entirely affordable for governments and central banks to find a program to essentially end new fossil fuel financing.
JP Morgan lent 317 billion, and I was trying to look at the size of the bank. I found, it's not perfect, but one value, which was their total asset, is 3,390 billion. So it's roughly 10%, which is a hit, and probably this 317 billion does not include fees that the banks would make. However, I mean, when I say it's a hit, this wouldn't even be true, because we're talking about new fossil fuels, right? Obviously, the investments that we are talking about are the old, well, more or less, not all, I guess. There's some new projects in there, but so you're not talking about the whole value. What these banks need is a clear pathway, which the IEA has come up with a report. And in that report, there's various pathways that are actually described. So you can't even say that you don't have this anymore.
The insurance companies globally take single digits, 5 or 7% of their revenue from fossil fuel companies. But because of fossil fuel companies' activities and the breakdown of climate that we see, something like 30, 40, 50% of their claims are coming from the activities that they are effectively supporting. Their property damage claims, their flooding claims, are coming from the activities that they are supporting. So ironically, we, the activists who are asking established finance incumbents to look at their business models again, are saying to them, you cannot have a profitable insurance model if you insure and keep going expansions in an industry that's causing your claims to go up. In summary, you can't keep on feeding folk who are going to damage your markets to the point where we have market failures in insurance. So that there are lots of layers of this. One layer of it, of course, is the development issue that many of these countries face. Another layer is the financing of fossil fuel industry companies, which we've talked about. But the third layer is actually that the finance industry itself is not making a rational, strategic choice if it carries on financing companies who then cause it to lose profitable markets.
Next step is like, banks have to set themselves up for the transition, right? At the moment, as Chidi mentioned, board members, there's more board members with fossil fuel experience than green experience. So they have to expand their green loans and green bonds, work at reducing their exposures, not just in loans, but in their wealth department as well. Your board composition and experience should reflect climate goals. You should have somebody at board level who is empowered to make a difference and has a team to lead on that. So yeah, step 2 is like for companies in finance to set themselves up to make a difference, which I would say at the moment, they're absolutely not. It's not even reflected in people's KPIs, right? I'm sure most of the senior managers who work in the oil and gas or in the commodities department have to maximize their loans to a company. So if you really mean it, it's just incompatible.